Hey everybody, it's been a while since I've last made a video, but my last video I was talking about my archive project. Since then I have fully updated it, finished it through my trial and error, so I'm now pretty good with it. And I am going to show you in this video some methods you can use to archiving your games. I won't cover everything, obviously, there's too much to cover. But I'll give you a general idea on how to get started or some good methods you can use to help preserve your games. Before we get started, I do want to give a little disclaimer. Obviously, when it comes to video game archiving, there is sort of I don't know how to quite say it. It's sort of a battle over piracy, basically. And I will not be showing you how to illegally download any games in this video. This is strictly as legal as I can achieve. And I just want to show you that, just to show you there are options for someone taking a legal route. I can't really condone blatant piracy, really. So please be careful with what you do with your games. Obviously, I'm not responsible for what you do. So a quick background into me. I think it was about 2019. I was playing a game called Borderlands 2. I think some of you guys have heard of it. It's, at this point, my favorite game of all time. I have probably 2,000 hours into the game, and it's a blast. But around that time, when I was really heavily into playing it, I found a YouTube creator. I don't remember his name. I think it's Accursed Farms, and he had some videos. I think it's called Ross's Game Dungeon. And it basically talked about live service games. They're just disappearing. The game that you paid for, you're no longer able to play. And that kind of freaked me out. It was the first time I ever really considered what I was purchasing and the fact that I could lose it at any moment in time. So Borderlands 2 was such a good game that I absolutely had to figure out a way to preserve that game. So that's why I have made... that's the whole reason for this archive project I did, and it is the reason why I have made that Minecraft video on how to preserve Minecraft, because I think it's a fun game and you should be protected and saved for the future. I'm going to switch over to my phone here. I'm going to show you what your end result should look like. So before we get started, I want to give you a visual idea of what your end result should look like. And you don't have to, I want to be very clear, you don't have to use discs and cases like I am. It just looks kind of fancy and it's cool to display on my shelf. You can use something like one of these right here, this cheap SSD. This is perfectly fine. You'll end up with the same result. You just won't have individual games you'll be able to use. Now, every single game here, you'll see I have two that have Steam on them, the Undertale and The Witcher. I used a website. I think it's Steam Game Covers. And they have a bunch of covers for games on Steam. I used it for my art. I was pretty lazy. I didn't want to set it up myself. And so The Witcher is from GOG, just to be clear. It's not from Steam. But every single game here is from its own platform or its own method of getting these games. So I have Undertale. This game is from Steam. This is art for Puppet Combo. They have their own website of games. They're always DRM free. So I have Demon Souls. This is using an emulator called RPCS3. And you'll see I do have the original Demon Souls disc, but I have my modified one as well. See right there. We have Minecraft. I've already shown you how to do this, but there are some more steps to actually make it an archived copy, as you see here. And then The Witcher 3, this is from GOG, and it's the complete edition. Now, the main star of the show here is this. This is the most important piece of the archive. You can't play your games if you can't use your computer. And it's important that you have a backup for your computer. So that's going to be the first thing we talk about here, getting started. Alright, so the first step to archiving your games is to archive your operating system. Now, in this video, you don't have to use Windows, you don't have to do anything. I mean, you can do whatever you want. But these are just steps to help you along the path to actually archiving your stuff. You don't have to follow everything I do to a T. You could be using Debian Linux if you wanted to, and you'll still be able to pull off the same result. So in this case, my specific case, which is going to be probably unique to me, I have no intentions of updating to Windows 11. I have zero plans to do that. And so this desktop, when October of this year comes around, will probably remain offline. I do have a laptop, a gaming laptop. I don't need to, use this desktop for that kind of stuff. But the first step to archiving is to create a backup of your operating system and all of the drivers you need. So there are going to be a bunch of steps you're going to have to go through, but the big deal is here, like with my computer, I'm using a desktop, and on my desktop, I have a bunch of drivers I need. So this is my laptop. I have all the computers that I use here, but this is my desktop. And you'll see in here I have drivers for my computer. You'll see I've got my graphics drivers, and this one, my motherboard drivers, all of these here, and these are from the manufacturer of my motherboard. In this case, I think it's MSI. And it's good to have these regardless of if you're doing a video game archive or not, just anything at all on your desktop. This is important to have just in case MSI in the future decides to stop supporting their motherboard. This computer is good for another 10 years. There's no reason for me to not have these files. These are very important, and they may not host these, let's say the chipset drivers. They may not support these on their website any longer, in which, I've got them here anyway. It doesn't matter. So that's a very crucial step. I have another one here, the Windows 10 programs. So I've got a bunch of programs that I typically use. Disk mark, it's basic stuff. And then I have the gaming dependency drivers. Now these are also extremely crucial. They're about on par with the motherboard drivers. These right here are dependencies that you need to play most video games. I have this whole list here, and a lot of this stuff you can find on Microsoft's website. I will leave some links in the description to these sources. But if you don't trust me, you don't trust my links, you can absolutely find these yourself. This is VC Redist, DirectX. This right here, the June 2010. This is all DirectX versions included in one. I got some .NET stuff here. But generally, this is set up in a way, and these programs, you do want to make sure that these programs are all complete, so that you don't need internet access to install them. And the goal is, you don't have internet for any reason at all, but you still have power. You still have a way to play your games, like no problem. So, if you want to stop right now and find all your drivers, it's going to take you a while. It really will, but it is worth it in the end. So I've had Windows. I'm going to show you a little tip here. So, you open the command prompt, run as an administrator. There's a thing called software rot, and this is common on computers. But on Windows, there is a way to kind of counteract it, but it can never guarantee you that your Windows won't become corrupted at some point. But if you type sfc /scan now, and this will give Windows a chance to see if there's anything wrong with the system and correct it. But I have had Windows fail on me a few times, and this has come in to help me out. I can get started on Windows again. I don't need internet. So the second part of your PC backup and repair tool, that's what I call it, that's what my folder is called, is you're going to want your install media. So whether this is Windows or Linux or whatever you choose. In my case, obviously I'm using Windows. You're going to want the ISO. And so with my disks, the main method I'm using to store my games, I can actually burn a copy of Windows 10 onto, well, the ISO onto a disk, and as long as I have a disk drive, I can put that disk in and install Windows again. But in your case, you're going to want to go to the Download Windows 10 site, and you can create an install media on a USB. So you can keep a USB flash drive around with a Windows 10 install. I'm sure most of you guys have used this before. So now that I've sort of cleared up the archive of your operating system, I know I didn't cover it too in depth, but I will have a lot of links in the description of getting a lot of your dependency drivers, stuff like that. But regardless, we're gonna start with the games here. So what I'm showing you are legal methods to archive games. Now, the last two tabs here are a bit kind of iffy, and I'm going to explain more in detail about those. But let's just get started here. So the first website I'm going to show you, this is GOG, Good Old Games, and this website is entirely DRM-free games. So a lot of these games on here are AAA. So we've got games like The Witcher 3, like I had. Let me just type that in. As you can see here, you can download this game and play it without any DRM of any kind, any service. There's no service needed. It's a one-time purchase. I think you can, if you have an account on here, you can keep re-downloading this game over and over again. And so this is a great place to start, but they don't have a bunch of games. They only have so many. Developers these days, or not really developers, but more publishers, they really don't want consumers to have access to this kind of stuff. So you only get a very limited selection of games. So let's go through some of their best sellers here. Like, we got a couple Resident Evil games. This is pretty cool. No Man's Sky, hey, that's good. Cyberpunk, that's cool. So you'll have to take a look. Like Tomb Raider, that's a good game. There's plenty of games in here. You'll definitely have to check this out and see what you want. They're usually pretty cheap. They're older titles. And the great thing with these is I think these, if I remember correctly, these come with the dependencies needed to run them when you do download from the website. So it saves you a bit of a hassle when it comes to making that archive copy. So like next, I'm going to show you, this is Puppet Combo. This is one of the discs I had that I showed you. I love these guys. These guys make some really awesome horror games, retro style. And you can, they have their own website here. You can download their games. They have no service attached to them. These are pretty fun. I highly recommend them. I had a video, there's a video on my channel playing the Nun Massacre. A pretty cool game. So Minecraft, obviously this was my most successful video on my channel, the first video I ever made. And in this case, only the Java edition, as far as I know, can work. I haven't tested out Bedrock to see if I can get that to run without any service. I suspect it's not possible because it's dedicated to... it's more integrated into Windows, I think I should say. But yeah, this is another place you can get at least a game from. And then here's RPCS3. When I load it up, we do not condone piracy of any kind, which, typically when it comes to emulators, this is an emulator, it's usually in the gray area of piracy, but RPCS3 is unique because you can get disk drives, that actually read PlayStation 3 discs. So I had to, for this, it was pretty expensive, I will be honest, but I love, what's it called? I absolutely love FromSoft's games, and I had to get my hands on Demon Souls. I had never played Demon Souls before, but I had played all their other titles. Obviously, I can't play Bloodborne yet, but eventually. So I got the physical disc for Demon Souls. I got a disk drive that was capable of reading that disc. And there's some steps on their website here to actually convert the game and emulate it. onto PC. I will not be showing you this. It's too many steps. It deserves a video of its own. But this is also, emulation is possible, and in this case, this is fully legal to do as long as you do it right. Obviously, here they seem to be having some issues with piracy, and so I also do not condone that. So let's go over next. We got Game Jolt. This is a place where a lot of indie developers create games. So some free, some paid for. This is a place for a lot of demos. You're not going to get as much high quality stuff here, but there are some cool games you can check out. That is crazy. I don't want to click on that. So next up, we've got itch.io. I think some of you have probably heard of this. Puppet Combo got their start here. There's a ton of retro games you can check out. They have more than just games. They've got software. Family Studio, which is a chiptune, DAW, whatever it is. It's like a music maker. They've got a bunch of stuff here that I've used quite a few times. And then here's where we're going to get to the more slightly controversial stuff. So in Steam, there are a lot of games that you can run without Steam. They never integrated Steam's DRM. So what I showed you on my bed was Undertale, and that game does not require Steam to run. If you double click on the exe file after you download it from Steam, you can run the game without Steam running. Now the problem with that is you do sign an agreement with Steam, and that agreement is that you only play your games on their service. Technically, when you buy a game on Steam, you don't own that game. You only own a limited license to use it. So I'm not saying that you could get in trouble by doing this, but it's possible. It's never happened, so I'd be very careful with this. And this, it's not like they can really figure out that you're doing it, and they never really created a DRM in the first place. So, circumventing a DRM is technically illegal. Whereas in this case, they didn't implement one, but you did sign the legal agreement. So I would be careful with this. There are Steam community pages dedicated for DRM free. So let me look that up. Here we go. So these are games that you can run on Steam without DRM. And they have a whole list of all the games that work here. So this is an option. I really wouldn't, there's no way you can trust for sure that someone, this is actually possible. So I would highly just recommend testing the games you already own, if any of those are able to run without Steam. I wouldn't go out of my way to buy a game from Steam to see if it has a DRM or not. Now, I will be honest with you. It is absolutely possible to run about 90% of the games on Steam without Steam Launcher, but technically it's not legal, and obviously I can't show you that, but it is possible. That's all I'm gonna say. And then here's the last one. This is also a bit iffy. So abandonware is games that are no longer, or IPs that are no longer supported by the creator, or they're not being sold at all, or in some cases they lose the copyright for these games. But I have no way to actually verify if these games here still have copyright or not. So I would be very careful with abandonware sites, but it is an option, I suppose. So these are just a general list of stuff that you can use, and there's so much more out there to check out. I'm sure there's a ton of other DRM free game websites just like GOG. Alright, so you found a game you want to archive, and in my case I'm going to use Minecraft. It was I show you how to do this on my channel, and so if you followed my tutorial, you should end up with something that looks like this. This is the folder you would have. If you go into it, it's got everything you need to run the game. I guess why not? I'll run it right now. Just for the fun of it. But if you set it up right, it should run no problem. It shouldn't be dedicated to your system. The game should just run. So we want to archive this, but it's very crucial when you archive a game, you want to look at the file size. And take a look at Minecraft here. 6,000 files. Now, when it comes to copying files over, the more files, the longer it takes to copy. Now, this game is only 1.3 gigabytes. So it should only take you maybe 10 to 15 seconds to copy from your archive disk, or like in my case, I'm using a Blu-ray. It shouldn't take more than a few minutes to copy that over, but the issue with having 6,000 files is it takes a very long time to copy this stuff over. And we're having these, and we're putting these games on disks not to run them directly from the disks. Obviously, they're read-only, so you can't add any information to them. The whole purpose of these disks is to copy information onto your desktop to a place and then make a shortcut to use your games. You're using your games off of the hardware on your desktop, not the disks that we're making here. Or if you use an SSD or whatever, it's really a good idea to keep that SSD like a read-only SSD. It's only to take copy information off of onto your desktop. So when we're doing that, these 6,000 files can cause a big issue for us. And so I want to show you this right here is what I threw on my, in this case I am using a DVD for these because they're so small. But this is what I put on. So when I put my DVD in here, I burn one big file. And this is the Minecraft Java archive. That's what I titled it. So I want to show you the structure I use to archive my games. And I have failed so many times at this that I finally have a good idea on how to be a little more successful. So I do put a lot of stuff into these. So in this, obviously the Minecraft archive, right? So in your case, we're going to have the installation, a README, in the folder. Let's say, for the sake of it, like this wasn't here. You're going to have your Minecraft 1.18.2. You're going to have a README file, and you're going to have right above that. It'll probably show up above that installation, but it'll look like this. Let's say this is your Minecraft 1.18. But in this case, I have a whole bunch of Minecraft stuff here. All different versions, a whole bunch of stuff. Now you're going to notice these are WinRAR zip archives. These aren't actually WinRAR zip archives. I just have WinRAR, so all zip file extensions automatically get registered to WinRAR. But you'll notice, if I go to properties here, no, general. Oh, I can't actually show you. Let me highlight all of them and I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right, if I go to properties, look how many files there are. There's only 8 files. When I first made this archive, it had 60,000 files on it. You would not believe the sounds that came from my optical drive trying to burn the disk and then trying to copy this back over. So I redid my whole archive because it was a bit flawed in a lot of ways, and this took hours to copy stuff over. It now only takes like 2 minutes. So I've converted these into zip files. So you don't need WinRAR. You can use WinRAR if you want, but it's going to be an extra step. So the first step, as long as you know that your games are working 100%, you know your games are good, what you can do is, like in this case, we can right click, and you don't have to use WinRAR. I'm going to show you right now. You can send to compress zip folder right here. So this is going to compress it. I'm actually just going to let this run while I talk a little bit. But what this does is it compresses your file. In this case, Minecraft is just too big. I can't deal with the time it takes to copy from place to place. So I'm going to turn this into a zip file. So it's only one file. It's real quick. And it is an extra step. So what happens is when you archive this and you copy to your desktop, you will need to uncompress this file and turn it back into its normal, into what it is right at the moment. But this is it's kind of a step you have to do here. All right, so you got your game compressed. And listen, it's not a requirement for everything. I tend to usually do it with stuff over 20,000 files. It usually starts to get really rough from that point on. So for a general idea, I wouldn't always be doing this, but specifically with Minecraft, you're gonna need to do this. And then I keep a README file. So this is I have a general template for this. So I'll usually just put the the release date for Minecraft and some general information for myself. And then this is where I get into like the very detailed stuff. So there's a lot of, see right here. These are in zip format. And I explain that to myself in this document. So if I ever forget in the future, what I've done, well, this is it right here. And also, since I'm using disks in my case, some games are just so big that I cannot, especially with The Witcher, I can't store that on one disk. So what ends up happening, and in that case, I didn't zip archive. I didn't zip the file like I did here. So you'll notice it still shows up as a WinRAR, even though it's just a zip. In this case, let's say this game here was 40 gigabytes. So I'm going to have to split this into 2 disks. Now let's say in this scenario I've created for myself, let's say this folder, Windows 64, let's say 20 gigabytes is in this file right here. So in that case, I would take this, put this into its own disk, a second disk. I would have a README file, and it would give me instructions on where to put that folder. So that's a very crucial step as well you're going to want to do. But as long as you describe where you need this folder to go back to, let's say, you go up on here and you give an exact location. Obviously, avoid this desktop stuff. When you're trying to give locations to your text file, never use this. This is a location specific to your Windows install. If you change Windows in the future, the users hunter desktop, that's mine in this scenario, will not exist. So the folder that it's in, and this right here, this is the directory you want to use if you want to say, hey, let's move this Windows x64 folder into disk 1 in new folder Minecraft 1.18.2. Put it alongside logs and the 1.18.2 executable jar file. You want to give it detail into where it needs to go. Let's go back to the archive here and let's take a look at our installation here. So in this scenario, Minecraft only needs Java 8 to run. And I do have Java 8 right here. But I like to keep all of my dependencies in every single game archive I make. And I do that just so it's generally a pretty good rule to do that. I mean, there's no guarantee that your stuff's is not going to get corrupted. So I like to have a list of everything I need. But let's say Windows craps out on me and then I reinstall Windows. Well, I only have to install my stuff one time. I don't have to pick and choose my disks to install my drivers. Everything's here. It's all ready for me. But in this case, I did include WinRAR just in case I had issues extracting that zip file. And then I included Java because Java is required to play Minecraft. So after doing this, and creating my README, and like in this case, here I have RAM set to 5 gigabytes. I can change it using the batch file, right? That's something you definitely want to tell yourself in this scenario. And then what happens after is you're going to be left with one, you want to be left with one file. You're going to take this and copy it over to your archive. So I'm going to show you an already finished archive, and it's going to be on my Blu-ray discs. That's just what I'm using to store my stuff. Doesn't have to be this way. Now if you were using an SSD, I would probably have one folder, the name of the game, and then everything inside of that folder for that game. You don't want this. installation and README is just like sitting all together with, like, let's say The Witcher, and you had Undertale here, and then you had the README, and you don't want that getting confusing. But anyway, I put the disc in. I'm going to show you. This is, like, on this disc, I've got disc 1. And you'll see I have my game and everything, and it's split up. And you'll see right here. Oh, but I've got my location and everything. I've already showed you that. But the archive's too big to put on one disc, so split it. And I'll show you what I'm talking about here. I actually have to take it out and replace it. So give me just a second. Let me do this. Probably takes a second for this to recognize the disc. I'll be right back with you. So I got my second disc here. We go into it, and you'll see these are the files that we need to put on the first disc. But I explain that right here in the README. And then I go right here. I have the location where I need to go in the disc for disc 1. And then if it's a little confusing, I'll explain in more detail. But I just wanted to show you, just in case you were confused by what I said previously. I don't want you to screw anything up. So the last thing I want to show you in this video is just the steps of making an archive. If I show you each individual step I go through, it might make it a little easier for you. Let's get started here. I'm going to use a game called SCP Containment Breach. It's an old game. You may have seen it on YouTube. People play it. I'm just going to call it SCP. And here, I'm going to paste the game, as I'd already copied it from another location. Now, this is the format that you should be... this is really important, especially if you're using an SSD. You can have a game here, SCP, and we'll make a new one. We'll say this is Minecraft. Oop. And that way, you're not... all the stuff inside of them, you're not mixing it up. Like, you know what dependencies go to what. So in here, first things first, you want to make sure the game runs. I would press launch, but it breaks the recording, so I won't do that. But I know the game runs, so that's important. Step 2, check the properties. Make sure it's not over 20,000 files. It's going to be a really slow copy process. If it is, we're good here. If you need to, once again, go to send to, send to compressed, or if you have WinRAR installed, add to archive, but make sure in your installation folder you have WinRAR in there to install if you don't have it on the computer, if something happens to your Windows install or whatever install you're using. We're going to make our install folder. Let's call it install. And then once again on the left side here, these are my dependency drivers. Like I had talked about before, I'm going to have that link in the description if you want to check it out. But it won't include everything. And some games will require stuff that may not be in this list. So far, every game I've archived has used one of or multiple of these dependencies. So I'm going to copy these, paste them here. And then here's our text file. So let me go and actually grab a template here. Okay, here's my basic template. Got, any missing dependencies need to be downloaded, just like I had explained to you. I've got, what this is designed for. And then I have an exe location. We're going to do that right now. It's right here, so, well, lucky for me, this is what it would look like. Not too big. And then after this, I usually would put anything specific about your game. Like if there's something weird with it, is there a bug of some kind, you need to make a settings change, that's something you want to include in here. Just in case the settings go to a default when you install it. That happens sometimes, so I make sure you've got everything you need to run this game. If you're playing like Minecraft with mods, make sure you have something put in there just in case you run into issues that you know of. And then after that, you're pretty much done. And this is what you're left with. So you would take something like this here. You take this, you would copy it and paste it on whatever your storage you're using to archive. Hopefully, I gave you enough information to give you a good idea on what you want to get started with. With something like this, you can't just copy what I do to a T, because whatever your game's going to be that you want to archive is going to be probably unique to you. And so there's a lot of steps that's going to be unique to you. So the whole point of this wasn't exactly like copy exactly what I do word for word, but it was to get a general idea of a structure going to actually start archiving your stuff. So hopefully, finishing this, hopefully you've made it this far, first of all. So thank you for making it this far if you have. And also I hope that you learned a little bit about archiving your stuff and you have a general idea on where you want to go forward, so you're not too confused.